Welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and I have an Alec Murdaugh, Becky Hill update regarding the upcoming evidentiary hearing that it's taking place on Monday, or starting on Monday. However, there was a particular juror he had some kind, I don't know, he or she had some kind of they already had plans made, like travel arrangements or something, so they asked to do their questioning as they're being, interviewed for this evidentiary hearing. They asked to be questioned Friday, the 26th. So so that particular juror was questioned on the 26th. However, it was secret. I mean, it was open to the public, but it was not streamed, or there's no audio of it at this point. It will be released in the future. However, they're waiting until the other jurors and Miss Hill can testify. I'm assuming the judge didn't want any information about their testimony leaking to influence the other jurors or Becky or anything like that. So that being said, that particular juror had their day Friday. They had their questioning, and we don't know yet the outcome of that. We probably won't until maybe Monday, maybe even later. But this is an article that was put out, but right before that, on the 24th, right before the juror interviewed yesterday, or was questioned yesterday. This particular article was written just a couple days prior by Will Folks with Fitz News. He's quite the Murdaugh news guru guy. He's got a lot of information about the Murdaughs and everything that surrounds them. So he's a good resource. He's usually always, in court. So he says he's asking an investigation or a cover-up. Becky Hill's confab with prosecutors raises questions. An institutional whitewash. Just days before she is scheduled to provide potentially pivotal testimony in a high-stakes evidentiary hearing tied to convicted killer Alec Murdaugh's bid for a new trial, embattled Colleton County, South Carolina Clerk of Court Becky Hill met secretly, with state prosecutors who are supposed to be pursuing criminal charges against her, and with the same investigators who are supposed to be probing criminal allegations against her. I think that's a problem. I really do. I think that's very problematic. The goal of this secret meeting to make sure Hill, the state's star witness, was adequately prepared for any questioning she may receive at next week's big Murdaugh evidentiary hearing, which revolves around jury tampering allegations leveled against her. The hearing is scheduled to commence at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Monday, January 29th at the Richland County Courthouse in downtown Columbia, with former South Carolina Chief Justice Jean Toll presiding. So hopefully Law and Crime or Crime in Court, Court TV will hopefully be airing it. I don't know for sure, but we will. I'll be on the lookout for that to see if it's actually being streamed somewhere. So Hill stands accused of tampering with a jury that found Murdaugh guilty of murdering his wife and younger son last winter. At the conclusion of a 6-week internationally watched trial, a Colleton County jury unanimously found Murdaugh guilty of the graphic murders of his wife, a 52-year-old Maggie Murdaugh, and younger son, 22-year-old Paul Murdaugh, on the family's hunting property near Islandton, South Carolina, on the evening of June 7th, 2021. So Hill announced these verdicts to a waiting world, a later published book detailing her experiences overseeing the Palmetto State's trial of the century. So she wrote a book. As we now know, she plagiarized a lot of, or I don't know a lot, but she did plagiarize at least some portions of it. And she took other people's writing and passed it off as her own with her co author. And she's admitted to that. Uh, Back to the article, it says the last 5 months have been disastrous for Hill, however. That is certainly true. If you've been watching any of this unfold, there's been a lot of developments. So her credibility has imploded amid a flood of criminal and ethical complaints, as well as the release of emails documenting her duplicity. Luckily for the elected clerk, the narrow parameters established by Justice Toll for Murdoch's evidentiary hearings should spare her from having to address most of these issues. Judge Toll did come down and rule very harshly pro the state, I would say, when it came to what she would let in, who she would let testify during this evidentiary hearing. She would not let the egg juror lady, testify. She said only those who deliberated. And so even if Becky Hill did get the egg juror kicked off the jury, by making up some kind of fabrication, I guess that doesn't matter. Um, she can do that. She just completely changed the makeup of the jury by doing that, if she did that. But we'll just let that be, I guess. I don't know. I don't agree with that ruling, obviously. Anyways, so her credibility has imploded amid a flood of criminal and ethical complaints. I did read that. Okay. So on September 5th, 2023, 6 months after the verdicts were announced, Murdoch's attorneys Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin filed a motion publicly accusing Hill of tampering with the jury. According to Harpootlian and Griffin, this alleged tampering included conspiracy to have a juror believed to be sympathetic to Murdoch removed from the panel on the same day the verdicts were announced. So that was a juror. So Hill also allegedly told jurors not to believe Murdoch's testimony and only other evidence presented by the defense. And she pushed back, she pushed them to reach a quick verdict, quick guilty verdict. So by stating that, if she urged them to come back with a quick guilty verdict, that would definitely be, in my opinion, tampering with the jury, if those words were stated. But we shall see what happens in the hearings. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think, as much as we don't like Alec for many of the things we know he did and the things he admitted to doing, he still deserves a fair trial. And if we do find that jury tampering did occur, then I do believe that he's owed a new trial. But I want truth and transparency and justice, and that's my opinion. What do you guys think? You can disagree with that. That's fine. But let me know what you think and why. And we can discuss it in the comments below. And please, before I forget, don't forget to hit that like button. All right. So more recently, Hill has been accused of ignoring allegations involving a juror who allegedly violated the judge's instructions and spoke in favor of convicting Murdoch. Hill's alleged motive for all the manipulation: selling copies of her book, Behind the Doors of Justice, portions of which she has since admitted to plagiarizing, like I was talking about. So Hill, quote, Hill betrayed her oath of office for money and fame, end quote, according to Murdoch's attorneys. Hill is the focus of an ostensibly ongoing South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division, or SLED, investigation into the jury tampering allegations, as well as a separate inquiry into allegations that she misused her office for personal gain. She is also the focus of two separate South Carolina State Ethics Commission investigations, both of which we have covered in great detail. So, Fitz News has covered in great detail in a lot of their reporting, and they include Hill's responses to them. Several of the allegations contained in those ethics cases are expected to be referred for criminal prosecution as well. And the people that are going to be prosecuting her are the same ones that she was meeting with, but we'll get into that. So as if all of this weren't enough, there are indications Hill and her son, former Colleton County Information Technology Director Jeffrey Colt Hill, may have conspired to obstruct justice in connection with the various allegations bearing down on them. As of this writing, SLED has appropriated unto itself sole authority to investigate Hill criminally, while the Office of South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson has accepted the cases involving Hill and her son, but has not publicly declared whether it will be prosecuting them or handing them off to one of the state's 16 independently elected solicitors. That's a mouthful. So, so SLED is investigating it. They have not come out and said yet if they are going to be prosecuting her, but they are investigating and looking into Hill's involvement, her potentially illegal behaviors and actions, and then her son's as far as wiretapping in order to find out what people knew about Becky's misdeeds, we'll say. So all of which leads us to Tuesday's big meeting in Walterboro. According to our sources, Hill met for several hours on Tuesday, that's the 23rd, with prosecutors in Wilson's office and with SLED investigators. So the people that are investigating her and the people that would be potentially prosecuting her, she met with them at a law enforcement annex located within the Bernard Warshaw building, I don't know if I'm saying that right, in downtown Walterboro. So, quote, they were prepping her, end quote. A source familiar with the meeting confirmed to Fitz News that they were prepping her. Ironically, this meeting has held exactly 1 year to the day that jury selection commenced in Murdoch's double homicide trial at the Colleton County Courthouse, a historic structure located just a few blocks to the west of the dreary brick building. Led by Prosecutor Creighton Waters, the Attorney General's team arrived at the SLED complex at approximately 9:10 a.m. Eastern. Hill, her husband, and her attorneys arrived roughly 40 minutes later at approximately 9:50 a.m. Eastern. Hill and her team departed the facility shortly before 1:30 p.m. Approximately 3.5 hours after the meeting began, Waters and his team exited the building roughly 20 minutes later, milling about in the parking lot for several minutes before eventually departing at 1:45. Ordinarily, prosecutors meeting with their star witness in advance of an important court hearing would not be cause for concern. If anything, it would be seen as a responsible move in almost any other case. This is true. But this is not any other case, and these are far from ordinary circumstances. Last September, Harpootlian specifically warned SLED that its decision to probe the Murdoch jury tampering allegations would be problematic owing to the agency's lead role in investigating the Murdoch murders, crime, and corruption saga. In fact, he specifically asked the agency to, quote, stand down from such an inquiry owing to its obvious conflict of interest. So when SLED refused to do so, Harpootlian pointedly questioned the agency's integrity. Quote, "Is this a legitimate investigation or the beginning of a cover-up?" End quote, Harpootlian said at that time. In addressing the recent referral of the Hill cases to Wilson's office, Harpootlian echoed these concerns. Quote, "They've got a vested interest in maintaining Becky's credibility," Harpootlian said, referring to the Attorney General and his fellow prosecutors as being more interested in upholding Murdoch's guilty verdicts than finding the truth about Hill's alleged conduct. Which they do have a very vested interest in getting a certain type of testimony out of Miss Hill. So for them to be prepping her, that is absolutely a conflict of interest. And if that is not raised by the defense, I would, by Alex, if Alex attorneys don't bring this up, I would be surprised. I'm guaranteeing that they're going to talk about it at the hearing or bring a motion about it or something. So, I mean, it just looks bad, right? I mean, I don't know. Where was I? So, on that score, he has a fair point. I have long maintained the ongoing involvement of SLED and Wilson's office in the jury tampering inquiry, as well as the other criminal investigations into Hill and her family members, was ill-advised and failed to inspire public confidence in the integrity of the process. Quote, "It is vital for those investigating, prosecuting, and adjudicating these matters to be completely independent," end quote. Will Folks wrote 6 weeks ago, promising that any media outlet would not hesitate to speak up when investigators and prosecutors were acting in a manner, quote, "inconsistent with the ideals of independence and impartiality," end quote. This is one of those moments. I think so too. The jury tampering allegations against Hill are the sole focus of next week's evidentiary hearing, and SLED's investigative reports on those allegations form the primary basis of what Toll must rely upon in her questioning of the Murdoch jurors. So she's going to be questioning each of the jurors and Becky, and I believe one other person, and that should be it. But I don't know who that other person is. Meanwhile, state prosecutors, many of whom flew to the national limelight like moths to a flame in the aftermath of the verdicts last year, now find themselves relying on the testimony of the same elected official they are tasked with prosecuting as they seek to uphold their guilty verdicts against Murdoch. In what way, shape, or form is any of that legitimate? The state's quote, "The state's only vested interest is seeking the truth," end quote. That's a statement from Wilson's office in response to FitzNews's inquiries about this. Quote, "As with all investigations, SLED and the South Carolina Attorney General's office are committed to a fair and impartial investigation and will continue to follow the facts wherever they lead," end quote. He says, "Really?" And I'm like, yeah, really? Because I didn't trust any of their investigative anything. I really didn't trust their impartiality or investigation strategies or techniques during the Murdoch trial, because they left me wanting more, I'll just say. So I believe Alec Murdoch is guilty. I believe he is where he belongs. So Will Folks from FitzNews believes this. I believe the Colleton County jury reached the correct verdict in this case, and I believe if tried again, Murdoch would be found guilty again. And that is probably, very possibly true. We don't know. I think a new trial should happen without all the 403B financial stuff, because I think that made everybody just see him as a monster before we even started talking about the unalivings of his wife and his son. It was like just persecuting him as a human. Not that it wasn't deserved, but it felt, to me, it felt like too much. Anyways, um, so he thinks he'd still be found guilty, and that's probably true. But the process currently unfolding seems like an institutional whitewash of credible misconduct allegations by a trio of institutions more interested in covering their own asses than following the truth, quote, wherever it leads, which is what we pay them to do. The lack of independence, objectivity, and impartiality associated with this jury tampering inquiry is beyond troubling. I agree. And it's precisely why none of the agencies involved in Murdoch's original trial should have ever had anything to do with it in the first place. And I'm in Will's camp about that because I don't believe yeah. I think if any of these allegations are true about Becky, even like remotely true, then he deserves a new trial. And SLED is really not to be trusted, as we, well, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Sorry. I'm putting my opinion in there. I didn't trust them. I didn't get a very thorough sense of trust in the investigation that took place. But anyways, what did you guys think? Did you guys think that SLED was fair and impartial when they were investigating him, and also now with Becky? What do you guys think about Becky being part of uh, these secret meetings with Creighton Waters? Let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and hope you join me for the next time. Thanks so much. Thanks for watching.